Welcome to another episode of the Founders and Friends podcast. I'm literally having a pinch me moment right now. Today's guest is someone that I have looked up to and followed for years and years and years. And so it's just always a full circle moment when I'm able to have designers on the podcast that I just find so influential and so inspiring. So today we have Kaitlyn Wolfe.
That's so sweet. Like, it's funny because you said you're having a full circle moment, but I feel like hearing you say that I'm having a full circle moment. So that was cool. I really appreciate those kind words.
Oh, I'm so excited. So today we are going to talk about your journey through entrepreneurship. At this point, you are multidisciplinary. You have multiple businesses under your umbrella. And I think that just diving right in, I have to say that that is so interesting because I think that a lot of designers, we kind of wish we could get to the point where like we have different things that we're working on. Like we've branched into different outlets. And so anytime I have a designer on the podcast that has been able to do that, I'm like, I have a million questions already.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a whole other ballgame because, as you know, I'm sure all the listeners know, like there's so many different facets of the industry and you can specialize in so many different things. But all of these parts of the industry are also ran very differently, and there's different nuances and connections and, you know, product versus service. Like those are totally different ways to approach it. And so, you know, we've learned a lot along the way, and you don't really know until you try. So I'm happy to dive into that as we go.
So I think a good starting point is just like a high level view of all your businesses. I know I think you started everything with Iconic. That was like,
yes. So, okay. So I'll give you the evolution. So
yeah, that's what I need.
Okay, good. So I created my LLC in 2016, and the name I had started with was Iconic Design and Build. I had eventually gotten my GC license. Well, when I started my business, I was still working full time. I was working for a GC, getting more construction experience. And then I was basically doing like decorating and small projects on the side, just building a portfolio. And they weren't really competing because it was kind of construction versus furnishings. And then eventually when I realized, you know, I want to go on my own full time, I want to get my GC license. I had gotten enough experience, you know, to do that. And I felt really passionate about working with clients from the very beginning to the very end on remodels. And so I set out, got my GC license. And then my company was Iconic Design and Build. And that's kind of how we started. That's how we grew. I feel like that's how our brand recognition, you know, came to be. And then over time, it was kind of like, I felt like I needed to connect my name with my business. And I also felt like design and build was getting a little confusing for like companies that were building homes from the ground up. I feel like a lot of those were considered design and build. And so we were only doing remodels at the time. And so I kind of was rebranding a little bit, and we merged into Iconic by Kaitlyn Wolfe. And so that's when I started connecting my name to the business. But it was so easy to just say Iconic. Like it was just the quickest, easiest way to reference us as a business. And then it was once I started really growing the product lines, which obviously I'll mention in a minute. Then it was kind of like, you know, the product lines have their own brand and their own names. And so I felt like at that point, everything just needed to fall under the Kaitlyn Wolfe brand, or we had kind of like too many names. And then there were also some confusion around like affiliations of Iconic, if we were affiliated with other businesses with the name Iconic. So I was like, let's make this clean and easy. Let's just put it under my name, and that'll be the overarching umbrella business. And then we'll have the product lines underneath that. And then it's just my studio for the design and construction side. So that's where we are today. But yes, we did start as Iconic.
I know. I was like, I've been here since like the Iconic design build days.
Oh my God.
We like rebranded, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And it makes sense because I'm like, now I feel like when I introduce you, I'm like, Kaitlyn Wolfe, like your name is known. So I'm like, and then of course the Iconic comes along with that. But from the design firm, the design build, what came after that? Because at this point, for the people who are listening, she has many, many businesses. You have the tile company, you have the Shop My Warehouse, which will flow into, and then you have the curated furniture lines. I like.
Yes. Okay. So I'll explain that evolution. So it started all with just design and build, and that was all we were doing. So I was working with clients. They would hire us to design their remodel and furnishings. We would actually do the full estimating. We would run the construction, and then we would style the space. So like I said, it was start to finish. And I felt like that was really my niche when I started. Everything was word of mouth. I didn't really know anyone in the industry. I was just kind of in my bubble. And then when I did start, creating a brand, networking, meeting other people, I started connecting with other builders and architects. And that's when we really started growing what we call our luxury interiors division. And that's where we're not doing the construction for the client. We're coming in as just the interior design firm. I don't want to say just the interior design firm, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And working with builders and architects and designing residential from the ground up, or even boutique like retail and hospitality. So that kind of started to create two separate businesses, where one was full-fledged, interiors, and then one was design and build for remodels. Of course, as we started doing my projects, I started designing, just as any designer does, custom pieces for my clients, but it was specifically for that project. So whether it was a furniture piece or, I started dabbling in custom light fixtures, like I just feel like when I was designing a space, I could envision what the space needed, but I couldn't find it. And then I was starting to meet so many craftsmen and artisans, and just to see what the possibilities were. So I think that the product design and the product lines were born because I started playing with product design and projects. And then the first product line that came about was Ground Floor, and that's our boutique furniture and lighting line. So that's completely designed by me. We work with local artists to create the pieces. Everything's made to order, and it's basically like capsule collections. So we launched the first collection, Blueprint, in 2023, and then we just launched the second collection, Elemental, in 2025. And it's kind of like an artist, where they have a point of view, they have a direction, and then they launch, a certain number of pieces. It's similar to that, but what we're doing is made to order. So we pretty much created like one of each style for people to see in person. But at the end of the day, we can commission something as well, like within the collection. So that was born. And then from there, at the same time, I was also sourcing a lot of vintage and having it in my warehouse. And the reason I was doing that was because as we would wrap up a project, and let's say we were styling a kitchen, like something, again, it started small and then it just started growing. So like, let's say we're styling, I didn't want to go to CB2 or, I didn't want to go to a local store where I felt like everyone had access to, because I was traveling, I started just finding, vintage along the way, or again, meeting other artists and buying their ceramics or whatever it was. And so what started as a small storage unit then turned into, pretty much like a whole bay in our warehouse. And then from there, Shop My Warehouse was born. And part of the reason that was born too was because a couple of spec builds that we had designed from the ground up needed staging. And I really wanted to stage them myself because we designed the home from the ground up. I wanted to furnish it as well, but there was no client. So I also started just buying things on auction or Facebook Marketplace because I wanted to fill this 9,000 square foot house with furniture, which is insane to front that cost. But, I'm going to do this. So we did that. And then all of a sudden that house sold and the buyer didn't buy anything. And all of a sudden I had an entire warehouse of pieces that I didn't know what to do with and I needed to liquidate. So I was like, well, I'm just going to move all the product to Shopify because that seems like a good place to organize a lot of inventory. And then essentially I launched a website overnight because I wanted a way to easily sell things to people that I had on hand because I couldn't really do like Venmo. It was too difficult.
Yeah.
So, and then once I did that, the retail was born and then it turned into a physical space. And now it's like full-fledged e-commerce and now we're shipping and now I'm curating more. And now I've even created a private collection that's only available to clients. So I actually have a lot of inventory that no one sees because it's not visible to the public. So that's growing as we speak for sure. Sorry, I'm rambling, but that's
no, this is like the most like relatable because I feel like I literally like probably like a month ago posted it in a Facebook group. Like I'm gonna have this 5,000 square foot build. They're not getting furniture, but best believe I want to fill it with furniture, like for photography. Yeah. And so many designers were like, no, just like style it, like just do the bare minimum. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to capitalize on this opportunity
Yeah.
and showcase like what I can do with
Right.
furniture and styling.
Yeah.
Like, and so hearing you like, no, we bought an entire house full of furniture. And then you're like, what do you do with it afterwards? I'm like, see, we're just built different. I'm like, I'm buying a whole house full of furniture. Like,
oh yeah. And I skipped a few steps, but let's just say after that house sold, I moved all of that furniture to 2 homes after that for staging that weren't homes I designed, but I was like, well, we might as well, I have all this inventory, we'll charge, we'll stage this house for you. Eventually until it sold. And then, like I said, I moved everything to Shopify, and then I started doing like pop-up sales at my warehouse until I got through the inventory. And then essentially once I did that, that's when I really started curating, like, what should I actually put in the shop? And like, and then the whole experience changed. We kind of renovated the physical warehouse space, but it's still a warehouse, which is why we call it Shop My Warehouse.
Yeah.
But I love it because I feel like it gives people access to shop an interior designer's curation of pieces, which is a completely different experience than a typical retail store. So that's how Shop My Warehouse was born. And then the tile line Substrate, we launched that early 2025. And really, we were approached by a distributor who was like, we love what you're doing and we would love to partner up. So they had a lot of relationships, and basically we launched a line that's essentially curated from manufacturers from Spain, Italy, California, and created this kind of boutique collection. And I've been so excited about it since we launched it. We've had so many projects we've installed it in. We've been selling to designers out of state, which has been amazing. And then we're about to launch a new collection within the collection sometime this year in the next couple of months. And I think people are going to be obsessed with that. So I'm going to kind of leave that there, but I'm excited to share that.
That's so cool. And like, just looking across all of your companies, I think what I really appreciate is everything is very unique. Like, I cannot tell you how sick of I am of sourcing from like the same places, and like everything looks the same. Like, I've sourced from these companies like so long that it's just, I'm so sick of it. So anytime I come across any kind of like your lighting, everything about all of your companies is like super, super just different and like curated and funky and fun. I'm like, I like this. And I wish I saw more of that in the industry. I get like a lot of designers who do move into product lines. They kind of want it to be like what I would say maybe like commercially appealing, like
or like mass market appeal.
Yeah, they want it to look good for the masses. And I'm like, but where's the cool stuff? Like, where's like the innovation? Where is
Oh yeah, I feel that to my core. I think that I've realized that about myself actually, is like, I don't like expected. I like the unexpected. And so I think that's how I design. And I like to think out of the box and to almost have people be like, oh, I've never seen that before, or I wouldn't have thought to do that. And honestly, sometimes, it's not your style. That's fine. Like, it's someone's style. I think I like, that's like what art is about too, right? Like, you see an art piece, some people love it, some people hate it. But I feel like that's how I think about product design, is like, we're creating a piece of art. And that's how I've always looked at it versus it being, this mass appeal. And so I think that's when you're really in it for the long game, right? Like, I think it takes longer to build something that way. But once you really, put the thought behind it and the why, and people get it, I think then you find your crowd, you find your people that appreciate it. So,
well, and it's nice because I'm sure that like putting out just like very authentic, like cool, innovative product lines, and with Shop My Warehouse, whatever it is, people start to come to you like, I want something that people have never seen before, because they know that across all companies, you're getting something that is completely like designed, and like, let's think of something and then flip it on its head and rethink how that can be engineered. And I could go on and on.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
so
I love
cool.
it. That's exactly what lights me up too.
Yeah. So it's fun that you have been able to kind of channel that idea through different companies and different brands. When you get an idea for a business, or whether somebody comes to you, how do you come up with the names for all of these companies? I have to know. I love them.
Oh my God. You know what? I've always been the person to make quick decisions. And I think that's good and bad, right? Like we all have strengths and weaknesses or whatever. I think one of my things is like, I just make quick decisions. So I feel like I can decide something or research something and then be like, all right, this is what it is. And you could stare at something forever and then be like, oh, is that really what I want to go with? But at the end of the day, it's like, I always tell my team, like, we just have to start. Like, as long as you start, you can improve over time. I mean, that was like my business name. Like, I changed that over time, and it's like, it's okay. Like, it's going to evolve. It's going to figure itself out. So Ground Floor, actually, I remember when I came up with the name. So I was on a plane. Actually, the original name for Ground Floor was Sift Collective, and Sift in Swedish means intentional. And I really liked that name, but it was really hard to spell. Like, it was Syfte. And so again, really difficult to spell. So I used that in the very beginning, but back to like, hey, you're going to figure it out. Like that was my name for Ground Floor initially. And then the more I was talking about it, it was like every time I had to explain how it was spelled. And like, it was too difficult. So I was already like rethinking, maybe I should change the name. And then when I was designing the first collection, I was coming up with all of the collection names, and I had thought the first collection should be called Ground Floor. And in my mind, I was like, this is the ground floor of something new. This is the first collection, like we're building off of this. And I could also picture the collection in like the ground floor of a hotel. And I wanted our pieces to be pieces that you could build off of, like in terms of designing a space, because most of the time when we design a space, you're inspired by one thing in the beginning, whether it's a piece of art or like a rug, or just something that the client loves or that you love. And so I wanted our piece to be that piece for the space. So I was really loving the name Ground Floor, and I kept talking about it. And then I was like, you know what? I think the whole line should just be called Ground Floor. So that was supposed to be the original collection name, but then I ended up just rebranding to Ground Floor, and I love it. I think it's pretty cool.
I love it. I like both, but I think that you have a point where I see some businesses naming their businesses something super unique, and then people end up mispronouncing it. Nobody really knows the actual name of whatever the brand is, and it just causes a little bit of confusion. So I think that you're totally right on that small little aspect of it, but I do like Sift.
Yeah. And then for the tile line, we came up with Substrate, and that I did some research, and it was similar. Like I was like, I want something that everyone can spell and say, but not something that sounds like something that already exists. And I feel like Substrate, when you use the word substrate in a sentence, like you're referring to whatever is kind of like the foundation of the space, whether it's like what something is made out of, like that's the substrate. Whereas I feel like tile can really be the substrate of your home. So I loved that name. It was easy. And so we went with that as well. And that's where those were born. So,
and then Shop My Warehouse is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Again, I think I'm a really straightforward person. That's the other thing I've learned about myself is I don't like ambiguity. Like I need direct communication. Just like, tell me what it is. Don't give me any fluff. Like, so with Shop My Warehouse, I was like, I literally just want to call it Shop My Warehouse.
Well, and I like it because I don't know why that feels more like personal than like having it be some other name. Like, I don't know. For me, it feels like, ooh, this is like the behind the scenes. Like I'm shopping the behind the scenes or something, like more personal access to your actual products that you've collected over your travels. Yeah. And you've been very like just open about travel and how much travel affects all of your businesses. And like, it even seems like travel is how you rejuvenate. Travel is how you stay fresh with like design. So I feel like we should kind of transition to that. Cause I'm like, how much are you traveling?
Well, let's just say it ebbs and flows. I don't have kids yet. So my husband and I have also been just taking advantage of that extra time that we know we have now that we won't necessarily have as much of. And so it all kind of started when my husband and I decided to go on the journey of visiting all 63 U.S. national parks. And no, we didn't live in a van for 6 months and do it all at once, which a lot of people assume. But it was one of those things that we had done a few national parks together. We had backpacked the Grand Canyon. We had gone up to Glacier and had done a few more. And we were like, gosh, we really love going to the national parks. This started in 2020. So no one was flying on planes. And when you live in Arizona, it's like you can drive to California, you can drive to Colorado, Texas. Like there's so many places you can drive to. So we started driving to different national parks. And then we actually had been inspired by someone who had been to all 63. She wrote a book on it. Now we're good friends with her, Renee Roaming, if anyone follows her.
That's cool.
And so we were inspired by her and her husband. And my husband was like, we should do this. And my husband is very much a checklist person. And so he makes lists for everything. So he makes a list. And he's the travel planner, which thank goodness, because I have no time to plan travel. And so he just basically started like building it into our routine, whether it was like a 3-day weekend somewhere or, work remote that week. And we would go to this national park, or maybe we went to High Point, North Carolina, furniture market, and we stopped to Arkansas on the way to go to Hot Springs National Park. Like we were also adding things on. I went to Chicago for, like an awards ceremony thing. So we stopped in, did a couple national parks, over there. So we just were tacking things on. And then the ones that needed like longer trips, like Alaska and, American Samoa and islands, like those were like our summer travel, right? So like we would leave town for a week or two and hit like 3 national parks. And then we finally finished all of them. And that was September of 2024. And then we were like, okay, we have seen so much of the United States, which obviously is incredible, but we were itching at that point to do more international. And although I've done quite a bit of international growing up, because I actually lived in England for 3 years, but we hadn't done a lot together. So then that's what we did New Zealand for our honeymoon. And then last year we did like Portugal. We went to Milan for Salone Design Week. And then we also did Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, France. And then at the end of the year, we did Chile, and then we did Mexico at the end of the year. And so we did quite a bit of travel last year, but my team will tell you I'm never off. And I'm sure some people would disagree with that approach, but for me, it works super well. Like for me, I like to blend my work and my personal. I think just because I'm a business owner, it's like, I can't really segregate the two. Obviously, I want to make sure I create time, for my husband and like myself and take care of myself. But at the end of the day, like those two worlds are kind of always going to be combined. And so even though I may be working when I travel, like I was still getting so much more quality time with my husband and like getting time outside where I was recharging and, connecting with my team just to make sure everything was moving forward and everything was taken care of. So it's a balance.
I feel like you would have to close your eyes if you didn't want to work when you travel. Like as an interior designer, like you would have to stop experiencing built environments because naturally, like if you go somewhere, you're like, oh, that actually is a really cool idea for such and such client. Yeah. Like you can't help it. So you really are working 24/7 as an interior designer just because the nature, I think, of our industry and how everything comes together. So I would be like designers who say that they don't like, they have like a hard boundary between work and their personal life. I'm like, I don't know about that.
I totally agree. But I think it's like, I don't know, you kind of maybe are told to like separate the two. And while I think that can be good, I feel like sometimes it's not realistic. And I think as long as you keep it balanced, like I think there's a way to still have both,
Yeah, I agree. Out of all the places that you've been, which one has been your favorite? If you could pick one.
Oh my God. I mean, I honestly really loved Iceland. I love hiking. I love the outdoors, but for me, Iceland was just like desolate. And I think I like that in a way. And maybe that's just because when I'm home, I'm so busy, I'm working, I'm always connected online. Like I'm talking to so many people. So I think when I go places that are more remote, I think that's where I can just like really disconnect. So Iceland for me, I think was the most surprising and just so beautiful, so green, waterfalls. Like I feel like it's all about the spa culture too, which I'm very into. And so for me, it's like a long day of hiking and just kind of this fog of a day and like just magical. And then you go to your hotel and you just hang out at the spa. Like that for me is just, that's good.
Like a perfect.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So as you're traveling and for Shop My, like
Yeah.
bringing back items and curating pieces, I have to know, how do you get all of these pieces back to Arizona? Like, I think someone on your team said that like you will put things in like your suitcase, like
Yeah.
how do you get all this stuff back?
I know. And it's honestly, people are like, is it worth that much work? I'm like, yeah, it is. I mean, it to bring something back that unique and put it in a client's home is so special. But yeah, so I mean, typically when I'm going to stores and shopping shops like that, I'm usually in a small shop. And I meet the owner, I meet the artist, and they're super grateful when I'm like, I'm literally going to buy this whole wall.
Yeah. Give me it all.
And so I'm like, can you ship? And they're like, yeah, we'll figure it out. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I will say, like, if it's too much to put in my luggage, we'll ship it, obviously. So we ship most stuff. But we also do get damages a lot, which is frustrating because it just happens when you're shipping from that far away and some like fragile items. So we have had some damages and had to kind of deal with that. But for the most part, we get it. But sometimes it's like a couple months later, just because, again, it's crossing borders and there's a lot going on. But and then if I'm sourcing in the United States, like I'll try to put it in my luggage if I can, or I'll just ship it. So we make it work, and I love supporting artists. And then the nice thing is I get to keep their contact for the future. And like, if we want to restock on certain products or they come out with new collections, we have their contacts and then we order more. So,
which is the actual like really, really cool part, because interior design is such an art form. So being able to bring other artisans to clients and like maybe get artisans who otherwise might not get that exposure or like be able to work with that clientele. So it's like bringing them to a new market. Because honestly, like being an artisan and creating things by hand, whatever it is, like I don't do it, but I do know some artisans, and it's not easy. It is like so not easy to get your product in front of people and then have people see the value and the price point and blah, 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 blah. So I think Shop My is just like a really cool idea. And I think a lot of designers kind of like want to do something like that. I have a million design friends who want to open like some sort of boutique or like furniture store or something of that nature. But I think what holds them back from doing that is just like, how does this actually work? Like, how does this actually make sense? Like,
and there's so many different ways you can do it. And within Shop My Warehouse, like we do have a mix of some is vintage, some is contemporary, like directly from artists, whether it's ceramics or artwork or furniture. And then some is stuff that we actually just stock. And so there's certain brands that we really love that we will just restock from. And that also like dishware and some accessories and more like filler items, but things that still have a story and are still handmade. So that's been really nice. So it's like, I feel like we have 3 different buckets, and it also serves different types of clients. But I think it's great when you can like mix. Like I feel like you don't want everything in your home vintage, but you don't want everything in your home new. And then it allows those like really more rare pieces that maybe have more patina or, those stand out more. And then there's different ways to purchase, acquire all 3 of those, to sell all 3 of those. And my team actually for 2026, because obviously every year we learn something different and we run, certain things in a way after the data we've gotten. And so this year my team is actually working on like curating different, almost like a theme for every month. Where there'll be like certain ones that's all about entertaining, and then there's certain months all about lighting. And so we're actually going to start curating specific products based on that. And so it will be even more organized, and then we'll still do like the artist drops and the travel drops when we have those. So like I said, you always figure it out. You just have to start. But I think because I didn't just get a retail space, like we don't even have a current retail space outside of like the one that's in our studio that's by appointment only. I think that's a good way to start, because you're not taking in like all of this overhead of having a retail storefront when it's your first time. Like for us, it's just literally, it was our warehouse and our studio. And when we needed more warehouse space, we ended up getting more space a few doors down. And then we repurposed the warehouse for the Shop My Warehouse. So it allows us to kind of test the concept. And then we're starting to really think about like, what does the future look like? Is it a storefront? What size do we need? How much money do we need to be making to afford the overhead? And like, we can start to plan a little bit more before just taking the jump and like opening a storefront.
Yeah, it sounds like with all of your businesses, that's kind of been a theme that I'm hearing is like, we're gonna try this in like how you said with doing the furniture, like we're gonna drop a line and
Mm-hmm.
see how it does. And then you're like, okay, we'll do drops.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with ShopMy. You're like, we're gonna start out with like this.
Yeah.
And if it goes well, then we can like, you know, kind
Yeah.
of
Curate.
transition it. Yep, curate it
Yeah.
into something else, which
Yeah.
I think is good. And I think it's like it makes it more attainable. Like I
Yeah.
feel like for designers listening, like if they're interested in having some sort of like furniture line or something like that, it's like test the water. Like
Yeah.
create, put it out in the universe,
Yeah.
see what the universe says, and
Yeah.
then receive the message.
That honestly, yes, because otherwise you overthink everything, or you want to perfect it before you launch it. And like at the end of the day, especially with an art form, it's like there is no perfect, and you could just continue to iterate and iterate and iterate and then never launch it. And I think where I said like I make quick decisions, I think that's why we've been able to grow and launch so much of the business.
Well, and like making quick decisions, my first thing that comes to mind is like you trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I make quick decisions too, and I feel like my husband's like, you make quick decisions. I'm like,
Yeah,
because I trust myself.
I don't think husbands like that like that so much. That's amazing. But yeah, I get
Yeah,
you.
and I just like I'm like, so what? I make a decision and it doesn't go well, then I just move on. Like it's
Yeah,
nothing's that deep. Like
yeah, 100%. I mean,
like
and then it eventually I think gets bigger, right? And you're just like, okay, now like that was a big decision that I made, and now it's causing a whole domino effect, and this is going to cost a lot more money than I was expecting. But again, at the end of the day, I feel like you always figure it out one way or another.
yeah, for sure. When you were like creating ShopMy and like transitioning it to be what it is today, what were the like lessons learned? What were the things that you tried that maybe didn't work out the way that you thought it would? Anything like that?
I mean, I think I kind of mentioned like we created the private collection. That was something that I felt like was necessary because I was starting to collect some of these, one of a kind rare items, and they meant a lot to me, and I wanted to use them in projects. And then all of a sudden, like they would sell, and I'm like, wait a minute, I did it. It's like then you get attached to stuff, which is also a little bit of a problem. But I think that actually has been helpful to separate the two. And also I'm like curating different things for both, because then we're also starting to like study like, okay, what are people looking for? Let's put that in the shop. Let's make that available online or in store. And then other things where I'm like, this is a one of one, and I'm okay to hold on to this, even if it's a couple of years until I find the right space, or I don't know. So like I started kind of thinking about them a little bit differently. And then yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we've learned about shipping, which is just always, a thing. But yeah, we've worked out some of those logistics, I would say. And then the other thing we did actually as the shop was growing is we realized like we really needed more inventory than we had at the beginning. Like we would just sell out of things really fast, or, people wanted dishware, but we only had a few quantities in stock, and then we'd have to order more. It was more work to keep restocking things than just to stock up front. But then it's also a cash flow thing because you need enough money to stock up on that inventory. And, again, that's kind of like the catch-22. But what we actually did, so the big warehouse that I said we got once we grew out of the small warehouse, we were actually doing receiving in-house for all of our client projects. So we started receiving all of our furniture for our projects, and I have like a whole warehouse team that was opening, inspecting, just like a true receiver would do. And then what was happening was the shop was growing, and then we had no backstock space to support the shop to actually stock things. And then we were running out of space to do the receiving for projects because the homes are getting bigger, more projects. So then we turned the warehouse over to just support the shop. And then outsource the receiving again to, a partner receiver in town, which makes sense. And that's a whole nother business that I just didn't want to continue to grow, at least right now. So that's something that we're literally actively doing, is setting up now the bigger warehouse to just support the shop. And then in doing that, we're trying to ramp up marketing and sales. So, which is a whole nother side of the business. So we just got into like doing meta ads at the end of last year for the first time. And we're starting to see a lot of traffic now from Instagram ads, and we're starting to sell a lot of product online to a bunch of people out of state. So I think we've been getting more traction online, but now we need to get more local traction. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And then, like I said, my team's working on curating more intentional drops and things like that. But it's been a really good experience so far.
Well, it's all working because, of course, like gearing up for this podcast, I'm like looking at all your different brands, like doing my research, of course. And like, I started seeing ads and I started like seeing everything. Like, that's
getting you.
Yeah. Yeah. They knew. They're like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So it's all working. When you think about all of your different brands, do you feel like they all have their own like unique identity? Do you have to like change your mindset when you're in, I don't know, I have multiple businesses and I find like on the interior design side, I have like I'm like an interior designer. And then for Vetted by Design, I feel like it's like a different hat that I have to wear. Yeah. And then for the podcast, like it's a little bit more chill on the podcast, but still. Yeah. So I feel like I'm constantly changing my hat between my businesses.
Totally. I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think even going from like pitching or presenting for a luxury interiors, whether it's a restaurant or, a custom home from the ground up, to then running a construction project and showing up on site and checking the progress and connecting with the clients. And, that's another hat. And then it goes to obviously the product design, and that's like designing pieces or partnering with brands. And then there's the shop side. So I definitely relate to that. And I think when it comes to like your question about a different, almost like brand style, I think that is what we did with Ground Floor and Substrate, because, I feel like we all have our own personal style, but there's also different like facets of it. At least for me, like, I feel like I love brutalist design. I love black and concrete and steel and glass and like something like that. But I also really love texture and terracotta. And, so like there's these different elements of my personal style. So I think like with Ground Floor, that's like we used to say like that's like the edgy sister of the Kaitlyn Wolfe brand. And so like that one's more brutalist, and we can flex a little bit more of that side of us. And then the Substrate is a little bit more of that, layered texture and a little bit more color and a lot of handmade materials and more organic. And so I think it's been fun to do that because it is fun to explore and play as a designer, and also just kind of create like a unique vision for each product.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine all different companies probably have some overlap in audiences. But obviously your interior design firm might have a different audience than Substrate. Yeah. And maybe that's kind of what you touched on, like getting Shop My, Substrate, and Ground Floor to designers, of course, to clients. But like also designers could be the audience and the consumers of those brands. Yeah. How do you get those brands across to designers? Do you find that designers are ordering Substrate? How do you market to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, obviously, we just launched Substrate last year. So this is, marketing and everything is something we're building. But I definitely think, just like you said, you're a designer, you're always looking for something different. And so I think we know what's on the market and we know what makes our line unique. And so I think it's really just getting in front of designers, and then also obviously having a trade program, creating benefits from it. That's everything we're working on, kind of right now, is just how do we create stronger relationships with designers. But we've already had really great feedback. And I think the more installed photos we can have, and I've also just, again, because we're a design firm, like we know what resources designers need. And there's a lot of tile lines that like, you're like, oh, I need this information, I can't find it, or I need this image and I can't find it. And, we know what designers need. So I feel like we're also like designers creating something for designers, and the better tools that we have as designers, the more we'll feel comfortable speccing something. So we did create sample boxes for the Substrate tile line, and we started right when we launched, we started sending boxes out to a lot of different designers in other states that were interested in the line, and just to get our samples out there, and then obviously let them know, who our contact is on our team if there's ever questions or people need samples. So we've been growing that for sure. And I think we've sold more to the trade than we have direct to consumer, really, for both Substrate and ground floor. And ground floor is similar approach too. It's like the collection is very different and designers are always looking for something different. So it's just been more getting the word out, and whether it be trade shows. We just had a booth at Modernism Week in Palm Springs, and got some great feedback there. But it's a hustle. It's a grind.
It is.
It doesn't happen overnight. Let's put it that way.
That is so true. Like behind every company is like years of just like hustle and like pushing and striving and like just working through obstacles, trying to figure out, like, it's just so much work. So I'm always like, no, years went into that. And you don't oftentimes see it, which is why these podcasts are so great. It's like, let's talk about what's actually happening, Yeah, I love it. Like, I'm just a huge podcast junkie in general. And then I like started my own podcast, and it's fun because like you get to have conversations with people that like are in different markets, have different experiences. Like I've been put on to so many things by other designers from the podcast. So it's always just like so fun.
It is fun. I think, like you said, everyone has a different experience, and I feel like there's so much to learn between all of us. So
So I know we're like getting short on time, so I'm like always mindful of people's time. But one last question that I always like to ask guests is, what's one piece of advice that you have received from someone else that really like resonated with you? And then what's one piece that you would give? So one that you've received and advice that you would give.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. God, that's so hard. I feel like there's so many pieces of good advice have been given over the years. I have the funniest sayings with my team too. Like I think it goes back to like not creating roadblocks for yourself. And I think it's like committing and making decisions. Like I always say to my team, I guess this is a piece of advice that I give other people maybe, is like, there's 10 ways to cut a pie. And I'm just like, we could sit here all day and like, there's 10 ways to do this, and none of them are necessarily better than the other or right or wrong. It's like, we just have to align, together. And this is like with my leadership team. It's like, okay, let's commit. We could do it this way, this way, this way. Let's all talk about which one, the differences between them. This one we feel like we can move forward on. Let's give it a try. And then we can iterate. And so I think it's back to that, like, there's like a meme where you draw a circle and it literally just says, just make it exist first. And it's like a messy circle. And then it's like, and perfect it over time. And I think that's like my mastery and what my team maybe feels inspired by, when it's like, they want to perfect something, but it's like, we're moving, like we're going, like, let's go. So maybe that's my piece of advice for anyone feeling stuck or nervous about something. And then the best piece of advice I've been given, I mean, one thing I would say is, like, this is in regards, I would say, to like managing a team. I have over 30 employees, and that's,
which is so wild. I don't know if you realize, that's crazy.
It is wild. It is wild. And that's a huge component of, growing a business. If you have a big team, like it's a lot of work that you don't really expect. And I think one thing is like, right people, right role. Like I feel like at the end of the day, you can get really personal with people because you spend so much time with them. But I feel like we also, as business owners, have to be really honest with ourselves and that person and the business, and do what's right for the business, and almost treat it like a sports team. Like, there's going to be times where someone may work well for a role and maybe they need to move to another role, or maybe there's just misalignment now, or maybe it's time to grow, or maybe it's time to relook at the organizational structure. And it's like, I think that flexibility is helpful, because especially when you're moving quickly, it's like you constantly have to look at how you're doing things and pivot in order to make sure the way you're structured, like, follows the way you've been growing. Like, it's almost like what's gotten you here isn't going to get you there. Like that, that concept.
I've heard that.
And I think that that's so true, is like, you have to be flexible and malleable, like, as an entrepreneur. And I know that's not natural for everyone, but I do think that that's part of like a really crucial part of growing a business. So
Yeah, I've heard that so many times that like the team that got you to one point might not be the same team that's going to get you to the next point.
yeah,
So,
and even not even your team, but like you, like I've learned that of what I'm doing. It's like what I did over the last, however many years to get me to where I am today, like I can't operate like that. That doesn't mean like
yes,
I'm learning, like I have a bigger leadership team. I have a bigger team as a whole. Like we're going, to new heights. And it's like, I have to change the way that I'm leading. I have to change the way that I run my day, how I manage my time. And so it's like, even it's your team, but it's also like you as well. Like that may have worked before, but it might not work anymore. So
I'm like at that point right now. Like I've been a solo designer for 5 years and I'm starting to realize like, oh, if I want to get to the next point, like I have to pull back and focus on growing the business.
Yeah.
So that means somebody else has to step in and I have to be comfortable with somebody stepping in and doing the client work, doing the drafting, the concepting, the sourcing, like and I will need to go off into the world and get work and just it's just a crazy like it does require growth like inwardly.
Yeah absolutely. I've learned that so much in the last 6 years. So it's been 7 years. Actually, this month is 7 years since I went full time. But like I said, I had started my business a few years before that, but 7 years when I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So,
which is like so, like what you've accomplished in the last 7 years. I'm like, that's just so amazing.
Again, it's the fast growth, and it's been a wild ride, but at the end of the day, it's rewarding, and everyone's timeline is different, and there's pros and cons to all of it. It's just not really a pro and con. It's more of just like your journey,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I feel like we could even do more episodes, like just diving into all the other businesses and like all of that. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Well, let me know if we ever want to continue the conversation. I loved it. It was like I just had coffee with my friend, just like you said.
I know. Yeah. And like, honestly, it's really chill.
Yeah.
It's not super it's not super stuffy. I'm like, I just want to get on and just talk.
Yeah.
I like to talk.
I loved it. Thank you.